Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You are here with Austin from Ohio. And today we are going to continue what we were doing yesterday in the video that I posted, which was called Proof of CV Plan, and a couple other titles I can't really remember right now. I'd have to check it out. But those who watched that video know that we ended with this whole thing here. And if you haven't watched it, please do, because there's a lot of important things in the actually, you know what? We'll just do a quick recap of this entire thing here before we get down to the part, because there's a whole bunch of it. But I want to say that also that I made a video recommending some channels, and I really hope that you guys check that out. And I really hope that you guys go over to those channels and give them a subscription, because those are people that I watch, and we need to look out for each other in this time that we currently find ourselves in. This morning I was actually gonna do this earlier, because I woke up kind of early today, got my coffee and got my chores done. I'm an adult now and I live on my own, but I still have chores. You guys all know what that is, and it's just funny to even call it that, because I just remember my dad would come home from work and he'd be like, "Oh, did you do your chores? You feed that dog? Did you do them dishes?" And I'd be like, "Well, yeah, I fed the dog, but I didn't do the dishes." And then he would literally wake me up at like midnight or 1 a.m. and tell me to go do the dishes. That's just the kind of person that my dad was. And I respect him for it. And Dad, if you're listening, I do respect you for that. 100%. But, so we'll just do a quick recap on this. And we'll go along with that. But also this morning I was watching a bunch of videos on Hollywood pedos, and I was digging really deep into Dan Schneider, who is like the creator of a lot of Nickelodeon kids shows like iCarly or Victorious or Zoe 101, things like that we all like have watched. People in my age group have watched when we were kids. And Dan Schneider is literally one of the most disgusting, vile pieces of human garbage that I've ever known in my entire life. He is absolutely vile. And I might do a video on that, because it's sort of in line with what we're talking about here. But if you don't know anything about that, you should go and check that out. The girl that played Sam on iCarly, her name is Jeanette McCurdy, and she has a podcast called Empty Inside. And she quit acting and all of that because she came out about how this Dan Schneider was toward her and a lot of other people. He is just very, very, very creepy, disgusting. And while looking into that stuff, I just kept thinking, this truly is Satan's world. But then I remembered that we are in the world, but we are not of the world. People like us. But anyway, I'll just leave that for next time. If you guys want to look that up, definitely look into it, because it's something that needs to be known. And if you have children that watch these shows, stop. Stop. Your children should never, ever, 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 ever watch those shows, because of the way that they were done and who these people are and why. And it's just, if you look into it, you'll find out. You'll find out. Coffee is good. But we will continue with our work here, but we'll do a quick recap. So this one was called Ultimate Proof. C-19 was planned to usher in the New World Order. We went through, and we got MDs declare that the P was planned. 500 medical doctors in Germany. Shocking statement during a press conference. The CP is a play, scam, swindle. It's high time we understood that we're in the midst of a global crime. Then you go down here and you start looking into these doctors and professionals, and then you get to this great, beautiful picture here of these people standing in solidarity against the New World Order. That they'd never show you, because they're like, oh, no, we can't let the peasants know that they're gathering against us? Not at all. And toward the end of this video, I'm going to read again, for the third time that I can remember, the Masonic Creed. Their little oath, or their little, whatever they call it. They have a word for covenant. Yeah, that's what they call it. And actually, John D. Rockefeller was one of the most recent ones to say it. And we'll go through that, and you'll see exactly how they keep power and keep us against each other, and how well it works, and all of that. But okay, you got hundreds of Spanish medical doctors say it's planned. We went through that. C-19 is a false P created for political purposes. World dictatorship with sanitary excuse. Urge doctors, media, political authorities to stop criminal operation by spreading the truth. And yes, they quickly realized after like 9/11 and stuff like that, like, oh, you know, the war on terror is a global thing, but we can't really get all countries to march in lockstep. We went over that yesterday too. They say, oh, we can't get them all to march in lockstep because, you know, certain things happen in this country, and then we can't get them on the same page, and then this goes on because the world is vastly complex. It's not like they could just hurry up and throw it all in there and be done with it. No. So they quickly realized after all of that, like, how do you get the whole world to stop, change direction, and march toward the New World Order? I got an idea. How about a worldwide P? All right. In this, 2015, the testing method was patented for C-19. And went over this. Richard Rothschild. System and method testing for C-19. October 13th, 2015. And then millions of them were sold in 2017, 2018. And then they tried to delete it. Well, down there they tried, but you can see this. C-19 diagnostic test instruments and apparatuses. European Union, United States, Germany, Japan, China, and Hong Kong, which is technically China, but not really. Yep. And 2017 was the year of that. And then they tried to hide it. Yep, it was baffling data was discovered by someone on September 5th, 2020, who posted it on social media, and it went viral. But when they were deleting it, they forgot to delete the code. But then when you look up the code, 300-215, there it is. This whole thing is the ultimate proof, and I'm really surprised that video didn't get taken down yesterday. I was actually very, very surprised whenever it didn't go down at all yesterday, and then I woke up today and it was still there, and I was like, whoa. I thought for sure that it was going to get taken down just because of the what's going on right now and how they're trying to make sure that we stay good little sheep, and we never question the shepherd because he knows what's best. But they got the project approved on, let's see, approved April 2nd, 2020. And the project is, this is the project. And the expected project closing date, March 31st, 2025. And I made a comment yesterday that lines right up with Deagle.com. And after they give everybody these stabs, people are going to start dropping. And then they're going to be like, oh, look, see, this is the third wave and all this stuff. And we told you guys it was terrible. And now we got to take all your freedom away. And then we remember Mr. AF here in 2017 said that there is no question there's going to be a challenge for the coming administration in the arena of IDs. There will be a surprise OB. There's no doubt in anyone's mind about this. And we know about him and his Jesuit and all this stuff. And we know about BG and MG and calling it and saying what was going to happen, because they've been at this a long time and they know exactly what they are doing. And they know that we're, for the most part, not very smart. So we'll just accept it as is. Then we went over the lie of overpopulation. If you fly over the country, you'll see nothing but land. That's a fact. Because they like to cram everybody into towns, cities, municipalities, whatever else. But you can go across the entire world, not just here in the United States, and you could see that overpopulation is a lie. They want to depopulate because you can't control 7.5 billion people. It's impossible. But you can control and ensure that your power will never be challenged if there was only somewhere in the ballpark of 500 million, like the Georgia Guidestones say. We know about Event 201. This was blown all over the internet and everywhere whenever this first went down. Richie from Boston was on it. As soon as it came out, he was on it. He said, "This is weird." And then he made an official prediction on January 7th, 2020. Before all of this even came into effect in W, the city in China, you know what I'm referring to. Can't say it because the algorithm might pick it up and take this down, and we don't want that. And he said, and he was reading stuff from MIT, from BG Foundation, and he was like reading about the quantum dot stuff and all of that, and he was like, why would they need that unless there was going to be pan, and that's it, that's the next step. That's exactly what he said in a live stream with 3 other people. I watched it live, and I was like, man, that he's on to something. That probably is what they're going to do. Surely enough. And we know about the conclusion was that all of humanity must be stabbed. We'll say that. And we're starting to get down here to where we were yesterday. We know about him. We know about all this. We know about it was predicted in 2013 in a song that described in great detail in the exact year that this stuff would come down. And one of the lines from the song in 2013 was 2020 combined with Crown V body stacking. And then he said, the state is rioting, using the street outside, it's coming to your windows. And then the guy that wrote the song said, I did research back in 2012 and read the so-called, quote, conspiracy theories. You know, those investigations the media doesn't want you to look into. According to those theories, P's were bound to happen in the decade of 2020 to 2030. So I wrote a song, P, about it. And here we go. We're starting to get down to where we were. And these are the simulations that the UN conducted because they had to make sure that they were this was going to work. They had to make sure that they were going to be able to handle it. Yep. Okay, now we're starting to get down to where we're going to start reading where we ended yesterday. And I went over all of this stuff. If you're confused as to why I'm not reading through all of this stuff, I went over all of it in the video yesterday in the part 1. Even though I didn't put part 1, I probably should have. But you can go and watch that and see, like, whenever, if you like to listen to me stop and talk about things or give my perceptions on them, please go watch that, and you should anyway, because you won't understand what's going on in this. And this is a book that was written in 2008, and it was literally called, you can read, double C right there. The purpose of this would be to create a new world of authoritarian control. We know all of that. And this is about where we were. In yesterday's video, we actually pulled up the document scenarios for the future of technology and international development. And we read through the lockstep part of it. Okay, we're getting down to where we were yesterday, which is perfect. Okay, here we are. This is where we stopped yesterday. First, they announced a GEP with the... Almost said it. Don't want to do that. And say what it should lead to, a whole new level of authoritarian control. Secondly, they gave practical steps on how to apply this control system. And these are illustrations and quotes from their guide. Quote, digital apps and privacy-protected tracking software should be widely used to enable more complete contact tracking. In order to fully control the C19E, we need to test the majority of the population on a weekly basis. This is literally from their guide. This. According to their scenario for the future, the entire... buddy of mine messaging me about Bill Cooper. Bill Cooper's the man. According to their scenario of the future, the entire world population should get a digital ID that indicates who has received all the V. Without sufficient Vs, access to schools, concerts, churches, public transports will be denied. And we are now seeing the rise in media coverage on the VP, the passports. That last year they were saying weren't real, and no one ever thought of that. And this year they're saying that we're going to have them. I won't be getting nothing like that. I won't be getting one of those at all. And I'll show up to work and be like, sorry, you're not doing this at all whatsoever to me, because I'm a free human being. And I was put here as a free human being to be apart from all of this if I chose to be that. Which I do, so take that for what it's worth. But it says now in 2020, that is exactly what BG and many governments are calling for. BG negotiated $100 billion contact tracing deal with the congressman, sponsor of Bill 6 months before. The crown pan, that's what we'll call it. Because, like Corona beer, that word actually means crown in Latin, and we know this. Shocking revelations were unveiled on the Thomas Paine podcast and the More Paine show on Patreon by two investigators. 9 months after the meetings with the G Foundation in Rwanda, Bobby L. Rush, a Democrat from Illinois, introduced the $100 billion H.R. 6666, C-19 Testing, Reaching, and Contacting Everyone Trace Act. Everyone's contacts must be checked. In a leaked government video, we see a conversation between former American President Bill Clinton and Andrew Cuomo, the governor of the state of New York. They discuss how to set up a large control system and test the entire population and check all their contacts. They discuss how to build an army to carry out its control system. Andrew Cuomo said, quote, hundreds and hundreds of control agents must be appointed. They test everyone and then check their contacts. This has never been done before on this scale. This is an army of interrogators who will check everyone's contacts. Let me tell you how something like this might work. Let's say you go to Walmart, and we all know that they downloaded that thing on your phone without your permission. So let's say you go to Walmart and you go shopping, whatever, you go home, no big deal. Next, you get a call from either the National Guard or the military or the police, and they say that you were around somebody who, tested positive. Okay, so now all the people that they were around are now getting traced. All of those people were around are going to get traced and called. And so on and so forth. You see how it works. So let's say that I tested positive, whatever. I did not, but let's say that I did. And you were around me. Not only is everybody that I was ever in contact with now being traced, but and all the people that they as individuals were around, they're all now being traced. 3 or 4 steps down the line, you got the whole world. That's how this stuff works. A whole new level of global control. BG also made it clear that only people who have been V'd against C-19 should be allowed to travel, go to school, attend meetings, and work. They're doing this in Israel right now. Of course, why not? And so they already divided the population in half. Those who are and those who are not. And then they will use those who are to pressure those who are not into becoming one of those who are. And then the rest of us that are left after that, well, we'll be the ones who they force it on with the military. Because I believe that there's a couple stages to this. Right now, we're still in the voluntary stage. People voluntarily going and getting whatever. Second, they will have the mandate stage after the voluntary stage is over. And that'll probably be like however many percentage of people, we'll say like 45, 50% after the 30 to 40% that will voluntarily go and get stabbed. So once they make it a mandate, people will be like, oh, well, I want to follow the law because I'm a law-abiding citizen, so I'll go. And then after the mandate, then you have the force of the militaries and all the movements of troops that they've been building up over all of 2020 and even still into 2021 for the 5% of us that are left after that, with the support of the 95% who are going to say that we're dangerous and we're killing people and you should be charged for murder because you didn't get it and this and that. And we already know how it works. Sorry, I had to make sure I was still recording. Okay, so digital VIDs are already being developed, and G has a patent on the technology that makes it possible to trace individuals' body anywhere. This technology is called, and we went over this a bunch, WO 2020 06 06 06, and that is the global cryptocurrency system using body activity data. And if you want to go look that up, you probably should, because there's even diagrams and illustrations of how exactly it is going to work. It's very interesting to note an enzyme called luciferase is what makes BG imp V work. I really have to censor myself when you start talking about the V, because that is what gets, they say, oh, YouTube doesn't allow claims about the CV that goes against the expert consensus. They don't even say that you're wrong. They just say that you're going against what the expert consensus is, therefore it's not allowed. In addition, G want to set up a global monitoring network which will track everyone who came into contact with the C-19. The plan, and we know this, is to, I don't even want to say that word, mankind with a D ... N ... A ... altering V. That's the truth. I even put up a video on my main channel of Mark Zuckerberg saying exactly that. Just openly talking about it. The famous investigative journalist Anthony Patch did years of research concerning the plans to control the world by means of created P and mandatory Vs. During an interview in 2014, this researcher predicted the following. They will release a man-made C. As a result, the people will demand a V to protect them. This V will add a third strain of D ... and A ... to a person's body, essentially making them a hybrid. Once a person is, you can read that word, Almost immediately, their D N A undergoes a transformation. This, I really hate censoring myself. I hate it so much. I really hate it. It's so annoying. This genetic change will cause people to lose the ability to think for themselves without them even being aware that this happened. Thus, they can be controlled easier and become slaves for the elite. Of course, that sounds insane, and it is insane indeed. Yet, we have to be aware that this professional investigator is no fool. He has done years of research, and this is what he discovered over the years. We must be careful not to reject sound knowledge based on years of research simply because our own lack of insight in these topics. 20 years of research say the V will change our D. I could just say deoxyribonucleic acid. That's the actual word for it, but then they'll probably flag that too. This video is going to get taken down, guys. I'm more confident that this one will get taken down, so download it, watch it, understand it. Dr. Carrie Madej, it'll get taken down just for saying her name, directed 2 large clinics in Georgia before she went to a Dominican Republic to do humanitarian work. She studied deoxyribonucleic acid and V's for the past 20 years and made an urgent video in which she warns that there is a plan to humanity with a very dangerous V4C. The purpose of these new Vs will be twofold. Reprogram our D and make us hybrids that are easier to control. Connect us to AI through digital VID, which will also open a new whole realm of control. Yes, ID 2020. WO 2020-06-0606. All this stuff is patented, and it's the actual evidence. But they take it down for that reason. Because it's real evidence. And they don't like that. This medical expert says she has observed multiple times how Ds were spread over populations by aircraft. Because of safety reasons, she is not able to share more details about this in public. Depopulate the Earth by means of organized E's. Dr. John Coleman is a famous intelligence officer from the CIA who wrote the book titled Committee of 300. And you remember from the hierarchy. Committee of 300 is at the top. Almost at the top. Entity explains how secret societies manipulate governments, healthcare, food industries, media, and so on. This book can be found on the website of the CIA. Yes, it can. One of the primary goals of the many secret societies that control governments and the media is to depopulate the Earth. You can find a list of 32 elites who support and promote, according to their own claims, to population here. Check this out. This is what he said. At least 4 billion useless eaters, that's what they call us, shall be eliminated by the year 2050 by means of limited wars and organized E's of fatal rapid-acting D's. This is the kind of stuff that's out there, guys, that the common man, the normies, that just shovel in all the news from the mainstream. This is what this is what they believe. And it's all out there, all the actual evidence. And every time I'll comment something on like a comment section and I'll say something like this and they'll be like, source, evidence, and then I'll just pull it up and I'll be like, here you go, here you go, here you go, here you go. And they'll say, that's not from a credible source. That's not from an expert. Actually, it is. You just don't want to see it. And that's just the plain truth of it. Because the social engineering is powerful. Very powerful. Dr. Coleman says the following about their strategy. And we just read what he said up there. Here's the Georgia Guidestones. Maintain humanity under 500 million. In 1980, a granite monument was erected in Georgia called the Guidestones. A set of 10 guidelines is inscribed on the structure in 8 modern languages, and a shorter message is inscribed at the top of the structure in 4 ancient language scripts. And we went over these a lot of times. CIA officer Dr. Coleman revealed that one of their methods to maintain humanity is to cause organized ease of fatal rapid-acting diseases, using V's to reduce humanity. During a TED Talk, BG echoed this goal when he literally said that new V's can be used to reduce the population of the world 10 to 15%. This isn't the actual quote, but it's like rearranged. I think they probably did this to not get this website taken down, because in my research I come across a lot of websites. You'll click on it and it'll be like, oh, this site can't be reached, or it'll say 404 error. But the real quote is, the world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new V's, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%. That's what he said. And then you can read that part right there. C19V for population control. Mike Adams is a published food scientist, author of the popular science book Food Forensics, and founder of ISO-accredited CWC Labs. Years ago, he said the following: an engineered bioweapon will be released in population centers. There will be calls for massive government funding for the V industry to come up with a V. Miraculously, they will have a V developed in record time. Everyone will be required to line up and take this stab. Sound familiar? Is that not what we're going through right now? People are demanding to line up. The rest of his message is that this stab will slowly begin to kill millions, if not billions, of people over the course of a few years. It will be a kill switch designed to reduce the world's population, yes, because they will use the 5G. People walking around with all these nanoparticles and whatnot, they flip on that 5G, your body is now a microwave. Oh man, this video is going to get taken down. I can feel it. I can usually feel when videos are going to get taken down. The last one that got taken down when I got suspended on my main channel, I told my wife, as it was uploading, I was like, my video is going to get taken down. And she's like, why do you think? And I was like, because anytime I ever bring up something about the stab, it gets taken down like everybody else. They don't like me very much, and I just started doing this like 2 months ago. And they do not like me very much. And actually, tomorrow is 3/22 day, like Skull and Bones, March 22nd. Summary. Was the P planned? Yes, we know that. And based on this here, of course we know that. Thousands of MDs call the P a global crime and a world dictatorship with a sanitary excuse. That's the best way to put it. It's the only way they could ever have achieved their world government, if we keep allowing them to go on with this. 2 years before C19 came to the global scene, the European Union, United States, China, and other nations suddenly started exporting tens of millions of test kits for C19. 2013, musician predicts the situation that we're in now and says this will happen in 2020. He knew this because of personal investigation of so-called conspiracy theories. Anything that they call a conspiracy theory, you can probably bet that it's the truth. Minus a few, examples of that, like the QAnon stuff. QAnon is perfect mixing of truth and lies. You get like 60% truth and 40% lie, because they tell you all the truth and then they branch off and they say the opposite of what's actually happening, which is really weird. Right before, in 2017, AF guaranteed a surprise O from an ID during the first term of the Trump administration. Right before the O of a CPBG organized a global CP exercise, Event 201. Right before the outbreak of the Preparedness Monitoring Board told the world to be ready for a CP. 2018, the Institute for Demodeling announced a global pandemic with the flu virus originating in China in the area of Wuhan. You know what? Screw it. If this video gets taken down, it gets taken down. I'm just going to start reading it with limited censorships. 2018, BNMG announced that the coming years there would be a global pandemic of an engineered virus. The C was created in the Biosafety Lab Level 4 in Wuhan, which received millions of dollars from Anthony Bababa. Several movies depicted the CP with great detail and even mentioned hydroxychloroquine as the cure. Summer Olympics 2012 played a P of Corona. Damn it. During their opening show. Investigative journalist Harry Vox predicted in 2014 that a GP would be caused so the ruling class could implement higher level of authoritarian control. Investigative journalist Anthony Patch predicted a global P with a man-made V that would be used to force D.N.A altering V on humanity. Dr. Carrie Madej studied, you see the word right there, NVs for decades, and says the plan is to use the C19V to start the process of transhumanism, reprogramming the human D. CIA officer Dr. John Coleman studied secret societies and said their goal is to depopulate the earth by means of organized Ps of fatal rapid-acting Ds. In the state of Georgia, a huge monument was erected in 1980 with 10 guidelines for humanity in 8 languages. The first of these 10 commandments, quote, 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 is that humanity needs to be reduced to 500 million people. BG said during a TED Talk that new Vs can be used to reduce the world's population 10 to 15%. The health ranger Mike Adams predicted years ago what we are seeing now. The release of an engineered B, followed by a V mandate, massive government funding for the V industry, and a V that is being developed in record time. He also predicted that this V will kill innumerable people over the course of a couple years. That's exactly what's going to happen. Over the course of the next couple years, they're going to blame it on, second, third wave, whatever, but no, it will be the stabs. In 2010, Rockefeller Foundation published this scenario for the future, which they describe a coming global P that would result in the implementation of authoritarian control over the people, which would then intensify after P. Yeah, none of this stuff is going away, guys. None of it. They're going to keep it going for a long time. In 2020, they published a handbook on how to create this world of control with a step-by-step guide. They say life cannot return back to normal until the world has become locked down with this top-down control from authoritarian governments. It sounds like a rap. They say life cannot return back to normal until the world has become locked down with this top-down control from authoritarian governments. Just being dumb. We indeed see that BG and many others worldwide are right away seizing control with unprecedented ways, enforcing VIDs, M's that will be implanted into people, mandating the wearing of face masks, social distancing, forced lockdowns, extreme contact tracing, and so on. Part of this top-down control is extreme censoring of every single voice from doctors, scientists, or other experts that criticize what's going on. Oh, and, hello, little old me over here. A little tiny speck on their map. I'm not even allowed to say whatever, and you'll see when this video gets taken down. It will. All predictions were done shortly before it happened. Note that every single prediction of this P was announced few years or even months before it happened. That is significant. Yes, sir, it is. G and F lie to their audience when they say history tells us this will happen, but there is no history basis for guaranteeing a global P to occur within the next few months or years. Never in history did anything like this occur on such a global scale. The fact that such a historically unique event was predicted in great detail by movie shows, investigators, medical doctors, those who finance labs, blah blah blah, those who earn billions from these P's, those who want to create a whole new level of control in our world, shows it was planned. Are there signs that the P is being manipulated? So far, we have looked at the indications that the P was planned beforehand. If it is indeed orchestrated, it should also be obvious during a P. A planned P is also a controlled P. And we already know about the plan to control the world. We know about the New World Order. We know about the Great Reset. There it is. Reset our world. That's what they're talking about. They're not even really talking about the P anymore. I mean, they are a little bit because they have to keep that narrative going, but they're talking about the reset. And everybody must participate. Oh, yeah, here's the... I do want to bring this up here eventually. But this is their map that they have on the World Economic Forum's Strategic Intelligence Sea Action Platform. I think that's what it's called. And everything is literally interconnected of the Great Reset. We'll go over that. Okay, let's see. And nobody wants these organizations. Not a single human being on Earth has voted for these organizations to even exist, let alone take full control of our lives, families, communities, jobs, health, industries, etc. Yet they present themselves as our world leaders who are planning our entire future. The World Health Organization presents itself as the global boss over our health without any one of us having chosen for them. They apply a tyranny in mainstream media and social media where there is no expression of medical or scientific expertise is allowed unless it's in line with the guidelines of the World Organization. That's true. When my videos get taken down, they literally say you're going against the expert consensus, and that's why we had to take it down, so YouTube can be a safe place for everybody. Come on, man. Come on. Tens of thousands of medical doctors and scientists have been censored all over the world by Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Why? Because only these social media giants state that only what the World Health Organization says is true. In fact, all of humanity must submit to these people who have positioned themselves over all of us without ever asking our opinion or even consulting with other experts. In fact, every single medical expert speaking out against their decisions is censored. This means complete loss of medical freedom, loss of freedom of speech, loss of true science, loss of true journalism, imposing of dictatorships by organizations that nobody voted for, led by people nobody wanted, and yet they simply seize ownership of our world. They are the big fat mean bully on the playground that plays boss over everyone. World Health Organization is run by a terrorist. Ain't that the truth? The head of the World Health Organization, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, member of the Violent Revolutionary Communist Party in Ethiopia, Tigray People's Liberation Front. Oh yes. The Department of Homeland Security clearly states that TPLF qualifies as a Tier 3 terrorist organization on the basis of its violent activities. Let this get through to you. The man directing the World Health Organization is literally a communist terrorist who has been involved in murdering thousands of innocent people trying to impose communism on Ethiopia. This man is bullying the entire world, telling all of us what we can and cannot do, censoring every medical professional who has a different opinion, demanding blind obedience from all of humanity while imposing mandates to be vetoed by their number one financial sponsor. You know who that is. Is this the world you want to live in from now on? I don't. More and more P's until mankind submits. Yes. And they always threaten us with more suffering if we don't submit to total control. Prince Charles recently joined Davos and publicly stated, "There will be more and more P's if we don't do the Great Reset now." Sounds like a threat to me. BG already calls this P1 and is already talking about P2 and 3. Investigator back in 2013 predicted a sea pandemic to occur in 2020, followed by riots. Said the plan is to create a series of Ps during 2020 to 2030. This decade is selected time frame to turn the world into one big banana republic run by mad, power-hungry men who depopulate the earth and enslave the rest of humanity. They're planning to cause as many as needed in order to break the back of humanity until everybody submits to their control. Yep, and there's all this stuff here. Yep. Is there hope? What can we do? There is hope. The future is brighter than we can even imagine. This is not a doom and gloom scenario, but a wake-up call for humanity to stop blindly believing the mafia, media, and perverse politicians and rise up as one for a future of freedom. Yes, we all need to be together. We all need to be on the same page. We are, people in this community. Well, not really, actually, because there's a lot of people that are going against each other in the truth community just because QAnon did a number. Oh, man, it did a number on the truth community. And I've seen it coming, and it's terrible. If we were all on the same page and didn't believe a word these people said, they would not, they couldn't. They couldn't. They just couldn't. And that's a fact. But let's move on to something else. Well, look at all that. We did all this in the last 2 videos. Awesome, ain't it? Great. It's beautiful. Even though it'll definitely be taken down because I talked about the V. So if you're watching this, keep watching. If it didn't already get taken down already, which I'm sure it will here pretty soon. Let's move on to something else. I actually wanted to read this. I came across this a long time ago, and I wanted to read it because it'll actually show how something like this would read today. This is not a real thing. Actually, it is a real thing that happened, but it was a long time ago. But if we're going to read this in modern day, this is exactly how it would read. And you'll see. Let's just get into it. 72 people killed resisting gun confiscation in Massachusetts. Boston. National Guard units seeking to confiscate a cache of recently banned assault weapons were ambushed by elements of a paramilitary extremist faction. Military and law enforcement sources estimate that 72 were killed and more than 200 injured before government forces were compelled to withdraw. Speaking after the clash, Massachusetts Governor Thomas Gage declared the extremist faction was made up of local citizens, has links to the radical right-wing tax protest movement. Gage blamed the extremists for recent incidents of vandalism directed against Internal Revenue offices. The governor, who described the group's organizers as criminals, issued an executive order authorizing the summary arrest of any individual who interfered with the government's efforts to secure law and order. The military raid on the extremist arsenal followed widespread refusal by local citizenry to turn over recently outlawed assault weapons. Gage issued a ban on military-style assault weapons and ammunition earlier in the week. This decision followed a meeting early this month between government and military leaders, which the governor authorized the forcible confiscation of illegal arms. One government official, speaking on condition of anonymity, pointed out that none of these people would have been killed had the extremists obeyed the law and turned over their weapons voluntarily. Government troops initially succeeded in confiscating a large supply of outlawed weapons and ammunition. However, troops attempting to seize arms and ammunition in Lexington met with resistance from heavily armed extremists who had been tipped off regarding the government's plans. During a tense standoff in the Lexington Town Park, National Guard Colonel Francis Smith, commander of the government operation, ordered the armed group to surrender and return to their homes. The impasse was broken by a single shot, which was reportedly fired by one of the right-wing extremists. 8 civilians were killed in the ensuing exchange. Ironically, the local citizenry blamed government forces rather than the extremists for civilian deaths. Before order could be restored, armed citizens from surrounding areas had descended upon the guard units. Colonel Smith finding his forces overmatched by the armed mob, ordered a retreat. Governor Gage has called upon citizens to support the State National Joint Task Force in its effort to restore law and order. The governor also demanded the surrender of those responsible for planning and leading the attacks against government troops. Samuel Adams, Paul Revere, John Hancock, who have been identified as ringleaders of the extremist faction, remain at large. And this, fellow Americans, is how the American Revolution began, April 20th, 1775. On July 4, 1776, these same right-wing anti-tax extremists signed a Declaration of Independence, pledging to each other and their countrymen their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor. Many of them lost everything, including their families and their lives, over the course of the next few years. The inaugural recounting of history had been floated around the blog sphere during the past year. Is it interesting to reflect back upon history, is it not? Would not these same men be labeled homegrown terrorists today? Yes. And in fact, they are. 150%. Sad to say. And the mass majority of the people in this country will always support the government and will always support tyranny. Because why? Because they love their servitude. It goes on to say, not saying that circumstances or parallels are the same today, they are indeed different, as all times are different, and certainly not promoting the notion, but reading a form of satire can be an interesting thing. The incident referenced in this article is, of course, not something that recently took place in the Boston area, but rather a recasting of an event that is widely regarded as making the beginning of the American Revolutionary War. Military clashes at Lexington and Concord, which took place between British troops, commonly known as Redcoats, or Regulars, and Massachusetts militia, commonly known as Minutemen. On April 18, 1775, the National Guard troops were British soldiers. Paramilitary extremist faction was rebellious colonials. Thomas Gage was the military governor of Massachusetts and the commander-in-chief of British forces, who had been sent to occupy Boston in response to the Boston Tea Party and other colonial acts of protest, and the law enforcement group was British troops dispatched to Concord, about 26 miles northwest of Boston, on the night of April 18th in order to destroy military supplies that were reportedly being stored there by colonial rebels. We don't have to read this whole thing, but you get the idea. This is exactly how something like this would read today. 150%, and it would be bad. It would be bad. It's almost to the point to where it would be impossible for our fellow Americans to rise up, because people just support what the government is doing all the time. Maybe I have one more thing for you guys, because I think this video is going to get taken down, but let's check it out. Let's check this one out. I wanted to bring this up a couple videos ago just because how funny it is, and I think it's like just hilarious. Chinese paper says United States should learn from China, restrict guns, protect rights. That's an oxymoron. You can't restrict people's right to defend themselves and protect rights. You can't. It's impossible. You can't do it. The United States should learn from China and genuinely protect human rights by restricting gun ownership. An editorial in widely read state not UN. I'm so used to reading that. I'm really tired, guys. I only got like 5 hours of sleep, and I'm running on only like a half a cup of coffee. So just bear with me through this entire thing. I'm just trying to get through it because it's important. The United States should learn from China and genuinely protect human rights by restricting gun ownership, in an editorial in a widely read state-run Chinese newspaper on Friday. Editorial in the Global Times newspaper was published after a massacre at a high school in Florida last week in which 17 students and staff were killed. Reignited a long-running debate about gun control in the United States. Washington has been pointing an accusing finger at other countries over human rights, however. More Americans have been killed by gunfire in the country than American soldiers being killed in all U.S. wars, the Global Times said. Gun ownership in China is strictly regulated, which helps reduce gun-related crimes and deaths. The U.S. should learn from China and genuinely protect human rights, it said. Well, the funny thing is that they're behind most of these shootings, of course, with MK Ultra, Project Orion, MK Naomi, all of it. Human rights have long been a source of tension between the world's two largest economies, especially since 1989, when the United States imposed sanctions on China after a bloody crackdown on pro-democracy demonstrators around Beijing's Tiananmen Square. China rejects criticism of its rights record, pointing to its success at helping millions escape poverty, and regularly attempts to deflect the issue by calling attention to its critics' own problems. However, the ruling Communist Party, Brooks, has no political dissent, and President Xi Jinping's administration has seen a sweeping crackdown on rights lawyers and activists. The Global Times, a hawkish news outlet run by the ruling Communist Party's top propaganda organ, the People's Daily, called it inhumane to turn a blind eye to gun violence after the shooting at Florida's Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School. Gun violence is rare in China because private gun ownership is restricted. And the truth is, of course, we're going to have people that go around committing these terrible acts. But think about this. What if the so-called and the victims of these shootings were actually armed? How would that affect anything? If you walk into a Walmart, let's say you're an evil person, you walk into a Walmart and you plan on committing a heinous act. You walk in there and you see the sign, it says no guns allowed. And you think, oh, okay, perfect. So these people, you can get away with committing the heinous act you want to without worry. But let's say you walk into Walmart and everybody's got a rifle strapped over their back and a pistol in their holster on their side. You would be second guessing that act. And actually, I know this guy, I worked with him. He actually works on the afternoon shift now, but he's actually an author and has a book, and it's published and everything, and he's actually very, very knowledgeable guy. I talk to him all the time, and we've had many conversations that you just can't have with people anymore because just the way that it is. But he used to live out in Colorado. And he said that when he first moved here to this area, he said that he was surprised and it was like a culture shock, because he said that one of the first times he went to a store, he saw like 5 or 6 people that were armed with sidearms, and he was like kind of off-put by it and kind of afraid at first. But now he realizes, and he was like super against people owning guns and all of that when I first met him. But then after talking to him for a while, and he's lived here now for like 2 or 3 years, he now understands and he feels safer. He told me that he feels safer when he goes in and he sees people that are armed. He said, okay, so if something goes down, I'm going to go to that guy. And I told him, I said, why don't you just get your own gun? And he said he thought about it, but he's not sure. But, you know, that's something that's personal, right, for everyone, whether you want to or not. But he experienced culture shock from being from Colorado and then coming here where people are regularly armed. Like, I see people that are armed all the time where I live. Shit, I'm armed half the time. I'm armed right now. But yeah, it's one of those things. Very important. But China says the U.S. has no other choice but to adopt gun control. The right of life is the most fundamental of human rights. The right to bear arms cannot overpower an individual's right to live. Okay, well, let's think about something. The right to bear arms has nothing to do with overpowering the individual's right to live. It doesn't. The right to bear arms actually ensures the individual's right to live, because what killed the most people last century? Tyrannical governments. Over 260 million people died at the hand of tyrannical governments last century. So What? You know? I wanted to read a lot more stuff, but I didn't know we were gonna take so much time on the one thing, and I want to see if this video is gonna get taken down. And we're already an hour in, so we'll just go ahead and we'll do our prayer, and then I will make another video probably tomorrow about current events, stuff like that. And we'll just continue doing what we do here. So let's pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not unto temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen.